So today I thought we'd make our way through the sketch list that I've just posted on Patreon and social media. It's a to-do list, basically, something I do or have been doing for years now. It's not something I do every month. It's not something I've done much this year at all, to be honest. But I find it useful to write down things that I'd like to practice and stick a random value on the end of that, you know, draw 50 skulls or whatever. And like I say, make a to-do list out of it and attempt to work my way through it. Whether or not I do, it's never the biggest worry of mine. It's just something to aim at. But yeah, like I said, it's on Patreon. It's totally free. It's just a good place to put things for people to download. And it's also on Blue Sky, I think. And you can just save it there. And yeah, you're welcome to join in if you'd like. It's quite a hefty list. It's very much more a personal thing than something like Inktober. But if it inspires you to create your own list, or if you feel like you need some structure, it's there. And yeah, it'd be cool to have you join in. And I feel like it'd be something I start doing every month and maybe working my way through. Probably in these videos it gives me some sort of structure to work by, because I feel like they've been a bit rambly for the last few uploads, and I'm still very much figuring this out, as you know. But yeah, hopefully it'll give it a bit of structure. Now, I've been doing some horizontal lines. I haven't been counting them, but the idea of this list is that there is a numeric value attached to each prompt. In this case, it's 100 horizontal lines. I've got 100 vertical lines, 100 circles, and 100 shapes. I thought we'd just touch on a few of those things and the benefits of doing those. I know I've probably banged on about those few things before, but with it being a new list and that's where it starts, I figured I'd just do it anyway again. So horizontal lines in general, simple things like this, simple exercises have been hugely beneficial for me in terms of getting used to using pen. It gives you a little bit more confidence and it helps with your line control and your pen control. And the idea is just to make the line as straight as possible. I sometimes follow the edge of the page as a guide at the beginning and then try and stick to that, but I've been doing it for so long, I just kind of wing it now. But yeah, you all know what a horizontal line is, I'm sure. So, and of course there's vertical lines. Now I'm not going to count these. I have actually already done what I needed to do for this month. This is more an example. Now, vertical lines are a little bit more tricky for me, and it's very much reminding myself to draw from the shoulder and just try and keep a steady hand. And there's a little bit of speed control as well. So if you go too slow, it tends to be a little bit more wobbly. If you go too fast, you can have the same problem. It'll never be perfectly straight, or, you know, every now and again you might get the odd one that looks pretty good. And also, something that I try and do, I'll just put it to the bottom of the page, is to almost quickly lift off the pen like that, because if you don't, you sometimes get little wobbly bits on the end. But it's a warm-up. It's not, obviously not, you know, meant to be hugely impressive or anything like that. I see it as a warm-up and a way to get things moving. But it does have the benefit of, like I said, you get that control, you get some confidence, and you'll find that you're able to draw relatively straight lines a lot easier, which can be useful if you're drawing anything man-made, to buildings, you know, objects, like I say, anything man-made. But also, you know, for general shapes and for graphics and just for anything, you know. So the next thing is going to be circles. Now, I don't have a ruler to hand, but what I typically like to do is draw a few straight lines with a pencil and then try and work within those bounds. Now, because I've just drawn a load of lines, maybe I should just attempt to do that myself. Again, trying to use the edge of the page as some sort of guide to make things straight. Like that. And I won't do a whole page of circles because that'll be really dull. But circles or ellipses, I don't know. I still struggle with now. But I find that if I warm up a little bit and take my time with it, I do gain a little bit of confidence. But it's just a case of trying to keep them within that line. And curves are generally quite common in most natural things, but also circles are quite common in man-made things, so it's an important skill to have, I think. And of course you don't have to do it all in one line, but I do like to practice doing things in one line as much as possible because it just looks crisp and it's just what I'm used to. So yeah. And then when you start to get a little bit more fancy with it, if you want, you can try and add a little perspective in there and shorten that gap. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it gets you used to the idea of what a squished ellipsis should kind of look like. But yeah. They'll never be perfect, and if you want a perfect circle, it's probably best to take a few extra steps. But I'm more about just using these as an exercise to gain a little confidence and to get warmed up. And when it comes to ellipsis in perspective, now I'm no expert on perspective, but if you draw yourself some panels, I think there's another name for them that's escaping me at the minute, and draw them loosely in some kind of perspective. And again, you can just sort of copy the ones that I'm doing if you don't fully understand perspective. I'm not about to teach the rules of perspective because I don't know them that well myself, and it'd probably take an entire video. But it's in terms of drawing ellipsis in perspective, it's a good exercise that I've found is to draw some of these flat planes. I think that's the name for them, in some kind of angle, so it's not just like a square. And then draw similar thing to this, but you draw the circle inside of that using the plane as a guideline. And again, make mistakes. If you have to do one bit, then do another, then do another, then do another, by all means do that. You do whatever is right for you. I just like push it, I suppose, unnecessarily so. Now, for shapes, I used to do this thing that I used to find quite useful, and I found it on a YouTube channel. It's one of the few YouTube videos that's actually really helped me with drawing. And I can't remember what it is, unfortunately, but I'll try and have a look for it, see if I can find it. So what this chap did, he drew some wiggly lines like that. And again, I might have touched on this before in previous videos, so I'll just quickly skirt through it. But the next thing on this sketch list that I was talking about at the beginning is 100 shapes. So if I can show you a nice way to practice shapes, that might be really useful. I don't know. Let me know. So what you basically do, you use this as the center line, as a almost like a movement of where the shapes are going to go, and then you draw those shapes, whatever shape it is, through the middle of that, or at least attempt. Now, I've not done this for years, so it might be a little bit ropey, but hopefully I'll do one that does the idea justice. So yeah, the idea is that it's meant to go through the middle. It might take me a few to get used to it, and it'll take you just as many, you know, to get used to it. And there can be any shapes you want. The idea is that they move through this line. And of course, maybe take a little bit more time than I am. I'm just doing it to illustrate an idea. But in that way, you know, it's not the best example. I'll try and do a couple more. So we'll have the cube from above. Have it follow this line around. And again, maybe take a bit more time on this than I am. But for me, I found this quite useful. I'm quite a visual person, so learning the maths behind perspective wasn't really so useful for me, and I'm not really that interested, to be honest. I don't need things to be perfect. And then again, you can do it with any shape you want, so do some things like that. And I'm rushing a little bit just to, like I say, get an example on there for you. But yeah, that's something that I found useful. You use this almost as like a centre, and then you put the shapes around it. Maybe try and do something a bit more simple. I think that first one was maybe a bit too complicated, but stick to things that are closer to that. Even just a simple line with an uptick would be really good. But other than that, just practice drawing shapes. Again, perspective isn't necessarily something that I'm an expert on, but figuring out what looks right and what looks wrong through trial and error. Look at buildings, look at things that you've got on the table, see how straight edges and angles are affected when they're tilted different ways. And I feel like they teach some perspective at school, so everyone knows the idea of the train tracks and vanishing points to some degree. But for me, it's just a case of playing around and getting almost an instinctual idea about what perspective is. But yeah, I feel like I've talked about shapes before, and I'm not much of an expert on it. So, and also try not to be too confined by these things either, because I sometimes get people ask about that they're not very, the shapes don't look quite right and all of this sort of stuff. It's like, well, it's just a tool, it's just a way of looking at things that can simplify it. But you know, when I used to play guitar, I still play guitar, but when I used to practice playing guitar, I used to do lots of scales, and I got really good at scales, but I wasn't very good at playing songs. And I feel like it's the same way. You can spend hours drawing shapes, doing exercises like this, but they're best in short bursts. They are the building blocks of things, you know, like this can easily be a house, you know, a very rudimentary house, but, you know, and, you know, a cylinder, you can make a mug, you know, and you can apply that to, you know, complex things like skulls. They're very handy to know and they're very handy to practice, but don't let it be the be-all and end-all of your drawing practice. They're just something that you throw on a page, make some mistakes, try and learn from them. If you need more guidance, there's thousands of videos on there about drawing shapes, I imagine. And just look at objects, look how they react to that, you know, vanishing point. Things like that. I feel like it's relatively common knowledge and there's thousands of people talking about it. You know, it's you don't need me to just tell you the same things. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, we'll leave it there. So, like I said, there's a sketch list. If you want to join in, or if you just need some prompts, some ideas, some inspiration, just do a page of each of those things that are on there. You don't have to do 15 landscapes, you don't have to do 50 figures, just do one, you know. But it's there as a little prompt for you if you need it. I think next video I'll probably focus on skulls, and I might have a look at some facial features, and I'll talk about observational drawing maybe. But like I say, these aren't strictly tutorial videos. It'll just be me waffling on about what goes through my head when I do these things and why I do them. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye bye.